Zero. Welcome to this edition of Tips and Tricks. So, all of you, all listeners of Jaipur Dialogues. Today, I have a very special guest for you, all the way from Melbourne in Australia. Please welcome Akriti Shrestha from Melbourne. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
She is a clinical psychologist and she works with people who have a lot of stress. And because you're going to have the preliminary examination of UPSC starting October 4, then you're definitely under stress. I know that. And because you're under stress, it is my job to assist you. For assisting you to deal with and cope up with this stress, I've got Akriti here. Akriti, why does examination produce stress?
I think exams come with it's exam by definition is a test of your performance. So anything that we're graded on, anything that we're being tested on causes a lot of stress. But in a country like India, where I think there's so much focus on academic excellence, is very highly regarded. There's a lot of internal and external expectations, I think, that come along with it for any sort of exams. So there's external pressures of parents, of schools, of the society or your community, because it means that it can probably get you into better university, better colleges, better jobs. That also puts, I think, internal expectations and internal pressures on people a lot, because they're competing with so many different, very highly achieving peers of theirs. So that the pressures along with the competition there is these days. As we can see in the board exams, there's so many students that get 99, 100% even. So I think the standards are getting higher and higher, which make it really difficult and stressful.
I don't really know about standards getting higher and higher, because getting 99% and 100% in languages is something that I cannot even comprehend. And these days, the people they do not even check grammatical mistakes, and that's how people get 99 and 100%. Anyway, that's a side issue.
True.
So that may be for some other time. Now, we have this special variety, particularly in India. I think not so much in the West, where your examination grades are sufficient to get you into the best universities or wherever you desire according to your grades you get in. But here you have very tough competitions. Almost for everything you have a competition. And now I'm talking to the viewers who are going to appear for the toughest examination of them all. I think it is rated as probably the toughest in the world, where about 600,000 people enroll, and about 60-70% of them actually take the exam. This is the UPSC Civil Services exam. This is slated for October 4 this year, got delayed because of the COVID situation. And now it is on October 4. So can you enlighten me as to why competitive examination produce a different kind of stress?
I think you just mentioned as well, I think the sheer number of people that actually apply for these examinations is so huge across India. It's and relative to how many people that actually get in, there's limited number of spots, limited number of people that actually get through these examinations. Only the really top percentile actually get in. You know how tough it is. You've been through it yourself. And the standards in that obviously are very, very high. So I think compared to how many people that actually apply, thousands of people versus a few people that actually get in, I think increases a whole new layer of competition. There's also, I think, this added stress of achievement, especially when it comes to UPSC and other sort of competitive exams. In these, I think the performance determines your career or the degree you choose, and there's this added pride and prestige in the family. Bureaucrats and all engineers, medicine. I think there's a sort of law, even there's a prestige associated with these jobs. So I think there's this another layer of this stress of achievement that comes with it. But also, I think more so now, there's so much sort of rigorous training that's done. There's coaching centers, there's tutorials, and all of these things that you have to compete with your peers. So it's not just a normal competition amongst peers like in school. Some people can afford it, some people can't afford it. So I think you have to compete with not just what you can do, but what else is this other person doing. So yeah, I would say it's, sort of getting harder and harder with the increased number of people applying and the limited number of spots available.
Yes, you're right there. I guess the coaching institutes put an added amount of pressure. And the worst thing is that even though they are coaching the people, but they are not really coaching and educating the children in handling stress. So that is where the role of a psychologist is really important. I don't know how many coaching institutes actually employ a psychologist. I think they should. So suppose I am a UPSC aspirant. Let's say my name is SD, okay? SD. So SD is taking this exam and is otherwise generally been doing well in his examinations. He's also topped his grade and everything. And now he's taking a coaching and is really stressed out. And he is not even able to do what he normally does. And he comes to you. So SD, as SD, I come to you and I say, ma'am, I don't know what is happening to me. I am just not my normal self. I wasn't like this before the examination, but this examination is really taking the stuff out of me. So please tell me how to handle it. So what would you do?
I think the changes in behavior is one of the first things to notice. So if you're not acting like yourself, if you're not motivated, usually quite a bright student is not being able to study or concentrate. These are the first few signs. If you're not being able to engage or socialize with people, knowing and being aware of your changes in behavior is quite important. So that is the first step. I think it's a two-part thing. That I think a focus on how to relax your body and how to look after your physical body is quite important, and then also how to look after your mind. And it's not a one session thing, to be honest. It's this sort of stuff takes time. It's a change in lifestyle. So in terms of because our stress manifests in our body quite strongly, so we can't really look after our mind without looking after our body. It's like me telling you to sort of cringe your body tightly and hold, you really tense your body, but then think of happy thoughts. It's just not possible. You can't relax your body. You need to be able to relax your body in order to be able to relax your mind. One of the things that I think students, especially in these competitive exams, do, which is counterproductive, is they'll pull all-nighters. They will study, slog off hour after hour after hour, days after days. And some may take memory pills, have increased caffeine, energy drinks to be able to stay up and help with their problem solving. So these are the two myths that need to be busted, is that you need your adequate hours of sleep. So if that's 5 hours for you, you need to sleep 5 hours. If it's 8 hours, you need to sleep your 8 hours. So employing good sleep hygiene is really important. So using your bed only for sleeping, not studying, not eating right before you sleep, making your room conducive to sleep. All these sort of sleep hygiene techniques are really important. And then eliminating some sort of drugs and alcohol, or reducing caffeine intake as much as you can. That's really important. Just connected to that, I think following from that, so looking after your gut health is also really important. So the gut and the brain are sort of physically and biochemically connected. So having good foods like those that have high omega-3 fats, probiotics, high fiber foods, and reducing processed food really helps the body and the mind. So these are some lifestyle things you can do. But I think more importantly, which people forget because they're so busy studying, they're sitting the whole time at their desk, is they don't do much physical activity. So any sort of physical movement releases endorphins in our body, which act like natural painkillers for us. So they help us relieve pain and stress. So some sort of physical activity, whether that's walking, brisk walking, jogging, skipping, whatever it is. So taking breaks I think every couple of hours is essential. Have reminders on your phone even to take breaks. If that's just to go get some water, have some snacks, play with your pets, stretch, whatever it is. Even just lie on the floor, do some child's pose, do some stretches. I think all of that stuff is really important to remind your body that it needs to stay calm and it needs some happy hormones going for it. So these are some of the ways that you can look after your body in order to look after your mind.
You mentioned about people staying up all night. I mean, that's something that I could never do. I remember when I was taking my undergraduate exams, and at that time, what used to happen was that my entire hostel row, it is a row of, I think, 10 rooms. And even when there used to be a dormitory, everybody used to stay up all night. And I kind of got under that stress that everybody is reading all night and I'm sleeping away at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So I tried staying up all night. And my God, the day I tried that, after some time, what happened was that I was just falling asleep. So I brought in a bucket of water and I put my head into water, myself staying awake. But even that did not help, and that's the worst grade I ever got. And after that, I gave up. So I think people need to actually, for some people it works, and for some people it doesn't work. So there isn't what is called a fit-all formula. I think everybody needs to find a formula for himself. And as you rightly said, a little bit of physical activity, getting off from the routine from time to time. And also, I think, as you mentioned, some bit of exercise. Guys and gals, I hope you're listening. A little bit of exercise in between would definitely help. So if you got a fit body, now we come to the real stuff, the mind, the brain and the mind within the brain. So how do you go about setting the mind right? Because that is where the stress really originates. If your body is fine and if you're not getting stressed out because of your bodily functions, if you're perfectly fit, otherwise, even then, your mind generates that strife, that stress. I think that is the key. How does one tackle that?
I think what everyone needs to understand is that when we're stressed out, our body goes into fight or flight. I think everyone's heard of this quite often, fight or flight or freeze mode. And this happens it's a survival tactic that we've learned, it's evolutionarily, we've learned to survive predators and things like that. The thing is that our brain, the same way that a house alarm can't tell the difference between an actual fire versus cooking gone wrong, burnt cooking, the same way our brain can't tell the difference between exam stress or being chased by a tiger. So it reacts the same way. It goes into the same fight or flight response. So one of the ways to really calm our body down is to really ground ourselves in that moment. So using our five senses is what we call grounding techniques. So using our five senses, sight, smell, touch, taste, hearing, to actually just remind ourselves or remind our brain that we're not in danger and we're okay. So it's simple things like even just noticing your feet flat on the ground, noticing your body on the chair, having some music or something else that you can focus on that you're listening to that really grounds you in the present moment as opposed to where your mind has taken you. So our mind often oscillates between past and the future quite a lot. Oh my God, that friend is studying so much more than I am. I slept yesterday and I should have studied more. Or what if I fail in this exam? How am I going to get this job? How am I going to pay? So it oscillates between past and the future quite a bit. So being really mindful and present. So mindfulness and grounding sort of techniques help us to remind our brain that we're actually safe and secure. So that is something that we can it takes some time to practice. I think it doesn't come naturally for people, for a lot of people. There's a lot of apps these days as well that at least young people here use quite often in order to help them with the mindfulness. Some people that can't organically do it on their own. So there's Smiling Mind and Headspace and things like that that can help with guided meditation sort of things. Additionally, I think a good lifestyle maintains good mental health. So other than some of the things to maintain a good body and mind that we've talked about, having a positive sense of self is really important. So if someone who goes into an exam thinking that they're possibly going to fail is probably not going to do as well as someone who is quite confident. It's what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I think drawing your mind to things that remind you of how capable you are, of how well you're doing, or some of the strengths you have are also quite important. So regardless of the exam, I think building a positive sense of self is quite important as well. And one of the things that I think, another thing that people forget about or sort of neglect is the socializing part of things. You think, I have an exam, why would I be socializing? We're social human beings. Human beings are sort of social animals. Socializing lessens stress hormones. When we're stressed, we produce oxytocin, which actually links us to other people. So doing things that are beyond just your exam, reminding our mind and body that there's a life beyond this exam. We have support systems, parents, friends that can help us through this period is also really important to combat that all or nothing thinking that most students go into exams with. So yeah, these are some of the ways that in the moment can help you sort of relieve some stress, but also have some there's some lifestyle changes and thinking patterns that you can develop that can help you.
Yeah, I think that's quite right. You have to keep yourself positive, and you don't have to be completely immersed with the final outcome of the exams. As we say that I've been involved with cricket training a lot, and there we've been training the batsmen and the bowlers mostly into what is called process orientation. Just concentrate on the process. Do the process perfectly, and after that things will fall into place. Because anybody can get out of a good ball, and you can always bowl a bad ball. But if you do the process right, then most times you will succeed. Most times. You may not succeed 100% of times. Everybody doesn't have to be a genius like Sachin Tendulkar. But then if you're doing the process right, you perfected the process, you perfected the response, then you are going to succeed most times. That's what we teach the young cricketers, because there is so much competition in cricket these days that we've seen the kind of stress that you have in civil services examination. I also found in the young cricketers, and that's how we try to tackle them. And as far as
there's so much at stake as well for cricket or UPSC. There's so much at stake. I think people have given their whole lives, and the parents have put so much energy and money into these things as well. I think in a place like India as well, where it's so competitive, there's a lot at stake. So understandably, I think I think all the attention is just on getting to the end goal. And yes, you're right. People generally forget the journey and just kind of focus on the destination.
Also, you mentioned about socializing. If it helps, I don't know. As I said earlier, that it's not a fit-all kind of a strategy. But as far as my way of preparing for not just this exam, because I've done many exams, I never studied more than 10, 12 hours. Never, because I found if I went more than that, then it used to become counterproductive. So even when I was studying for civil services, it was always 6 to 6. 6 p.m. dot, I would get up. And of course, I would start at 6 p.m. 6 a.m. I was an early riser always. Even today I am. So everybody has to work out, but then quantity is definitely not a substitute to quality of your studies. That is one thing that something that to be taken from this discussion. What about yoga? How does yoga help? We have been seeing this effect of yoga again among the cricket trainees, because that has been my uh, latest foray with the uh, competitive sports, or any kind
Mm.
of competition for that matter.
I think yoga is only just starting to be sort of incorporated in Western psychology now, which is great. I know it's been used in Eastern psychology for centuries now, but it's only now that studies are showing the benefits of yoga in anxiety, depression, stress, trauma, even. So focusing, in addition to some of the grounding stuff that we talked about just before, even simple things like focusing on your breath makes a huge amount of difference, and how you do that also makes a difference. So it's not just, I think initially here at least, people focused on just taking long in breaths, whereas now we focus a lot more on the out breath, because the in breath actually activates the sympathetic nervous system, or the flight or fight, and the out breath activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which sort of counters that. So that's the thing that calms your body down. So taking sort of, let's say, 3 in breaths, counting to 3, pausing, and then taking a longer out breath is often more helpful and calms your mind down a lot more, calms your body down a lot more. So we focus on the style of deep breathing, and just, I think when we're stressed, we don't realize that we're not focusing on the breathing, and that there's not enough oxygen in our brain. There's not enough oxygen in our brain. We're not problem solving. We're not using our memory to the maximum potential. We're not using our prefrontal cortex. So I think sort of once in a while, even just, again, have reminders if you're really, really busy, but have reminders to even just focus on your breath, and take some time to actually, and I think one thing I've noticed in Western psychology, not everyone is that open to yoga, which is a shame. So I think that it's easier for people to understand if there's some scientific explanation given along with it. I think they find it easier to do it. But deep breathing, even things like chants and hymns, they've known to sort of reduce your stress significantly and increase your happiness. So using that to the sort of rhythms that the chants cause, that was also quite helpful. So yeah, these are things that are coming up here, but definitely, I think you've done a video on sort of yoga and how that's helpful during COVID times. I think it's so similar concept can be used.
Thank you very much, Akriti. It's been really helpful, and I'm sure that the viewers who are watching would be immensely benefited by these insights that you've given. As far as yoga is concerned, I think we'll be dealing with it in future. Please stay tuned to these tips and tricks. I think in the next edition, I will come up with how to use the higher yogic practices to enhance your quality of study. Thank you very much, Akriti. Thank you.
Thank you so much.